right, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Why Not Us podcast. My name is Carter Kramer with Mr. Michael McGowan over there in the studio with the fat mic in his mouth, which is fairly common. And then, joining us today, I had to. It looks like it just
really.
I am sorry.
Already, this is the second episode of the new year, and really, you're doing this
Mike,
already.
It doesn't fit. That's the real question. Prove it doesn't fit, Mike.
And as you can tell, this is why we have our good friend Randy Carroll on to talk to us today, because he is definitely on my side. So this is going to be a great discussion.
Fuck off.
I'm on the side of truth, okay?
Oh,
Yes.
God, here we go.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple things today, mainly related to economics. Randy's got a very interesting position on some different economic items going on in the world we live in today. And obviously, Mike, you and Randy have known each other for a while. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about how you guys got to know each other, and then maybe Randy, you can fill us in on kind of how you got involved in some of this stuff.
Yeah, so Randy and I met, what was it, 2016, 2017, right around that time when Fidelity purchased Sync, and I went to work for Sync, and Randy had already worked at Sync, and then Randy and I worked together for several years there, and then we both went to a company called Chime together. And we worked for a few years there as well. So Randy and I have worked together 6-7 years, all said and done, which was his pleasure, as you can probably imagine. But no, I know Randy
without it.
I know Randy pretty well. Randy, go ahead and introduce yourself, man. It's just a really good, smart dude.
I appreciate that. I'm a career startup SaaS real estate guy. Worked for Sync out of college, right? So it's been the real estate SaaS world ever since. Always preferred small companies. I was not an economics major at all. Actually, I totally regret my college degree. It was a complete waste of 4 years.
As do 95% of the population, but go ahead.
Yeah, the school part was the waste of 4 years. Let me make that clear. Everything else was awesome. But yeah, ultimately just been working in sales, and that's how I met our dear friend Michael.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into a little bit of this. We're going to talk a little bit about, obviously, the world is in an interesting economic state. I think we can all agree with that situation, right? Where we've been seeing, fast climb in interest rates, fast climb in inflation. We've been seeing just some interesting dynamics. Everything, I think, in the world today is more expensive than it was a couple of years ago. I just got an email, man, from my pool company, no joke, from my house in Arizona, saying that my monthly bill was going to increase because chemicals have gone up 400% in cost for the pool company in the last 18 months. So just one example, I mean, just interesting stuff that I didn't really think about on a day-to-day basis, just in the economic world that we live in, but everything is more expensive. So, with that, I think it's got a lot of people kind of going like, what the heck's going on, right? And what do we do? And what's the next step? So Randy, talk a little bit about kind of how you have dug into this stuff, kind of the economic state of the country and how you feel about what's going on now. And then also just kind of how can people educate themselves a little bit on what's actually happening and what are some options for them to try to weather the storm, so to speak.
Yeah. So my interest in this conversation started, when I was at Sync, actually, and right before Mike got there, we had an exit. We were really, really fortunate, really blessed. And I came into some money, and I didn't know what to do with it, right? I was young. I was just really pumped whenever I had my credit card bill paid off. Managing money was not a skill set that I had picked up in my communications degree in college. So I gave that money to someone who I thought knew what he was doing. And I checked in a few years later, and the market had gone up 24%. And I was like, sweet, I'm doing great, only to see that my account had only grown 8%. So I reached out to one of my older brother's friends and asked him if that was okay. And he said, no, your guy sucks, fire him. And so, yeah, obviously. And so that like sparked my interest in like learning about the stock market, but learning about that made me realize the stock market is not the economy. The economy is very, very different, and the economic decisions made by the powers that be can have an influence on the stock market, but it's different. And when I started to learn about, the economics, our economic model, kind of our monetary policy in the United States, it became a lot more interesting to me than just like the stock pick of the day. that's a total crapshoot. But if you can learn like economics and macroeconomics and understand really what keeps the wheels turning, then you can make a much more informed decision on the rest of how you invest and where you put your money and how you can prepare yourself for the future. And so that's kind of what got me down the rabbit hole. I'm a big crypto guy as well, and that's not the topic of discussion today. But when you go down that rabbit hole, you find out the reason for that to even exist is because of the economic and monetary decisions made by this country leading up to the 2008 global financial crisis. And so you go down a whole second rabbit hole just trying to understand the crypto world.
So, I mean, you're the one that, in that research, you're the one that brought me to this website. It's WTFhappened in1971.com. So for everybody out there, for the audience, WTFhappened in1971.com. And it goes on, there's a lot of background and a lot of context to that as well, right? So for those that don't know, in 33, FDR, basically made it illegal for Americans to hold or own gold. Not only to use that as a fiscal instrument, but to hold it, right? And then in 71, which is, in the title of that website, that's when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And what I love about this website is it's a bunch of charts. It's not a massive essay that you have to read through with $12 words that you don't understand necessarily. It's a bunch of charts that show you in very, very plain, in plain diagrams, what's happened since then. And granted, the decision by Nixon in 71 was a culmination of decades of bad monetary policy, bad, centralized institutions of banking, like putting everything together, government overreach into the financial systems and into the markets, right? It's a culmination of all of that, but it's continued to get even worse since, right? So, Randy, talk a little bit about that site and then some of the learnings that you've gleaned off of that.
Yeah, Mike said it best. That website is amazing just because anyone who's ever seen a chart before can understand, this is something went wrong here. I don't necessarily know why, and I don't necessarily know the answer, but I can see right here something went wrong. And each of those charts include the source of where it came from. And so it really sparks, it's like when you were in school and you asked the teacher to give you the answer to the question, and they said, no, go find it for yourself. That's what that chart was like for me. It was an opportunity to go find the answer for myself as to what happened. And Mike mentioned, in 1971, Nixon began the process of moving us off the gold redemption standard. In the 30s, when the government made it illegal to own gold, they confiscated all the gold from the American citizens and then repriced gold to give them a 40% increase in their treasury, right? So now the United States government confiscated the gold, and the person who has the gold makes the rules, now said gold is worth 40% more. We have 40% more money. By the way, that doesn't mean we're giving you 40% more for the gold that we already took from you. We just have 40% more and you have less, right? So this is a great example of money printing. But it actually is the Brits' fault because it started in 1914 to actually fund the Great War, World War I. So going down that website, you get these charts and it leads you down this rabbit hole where you get to learn more about kind of the culture or what was going on in the world that led up to the decision to take the United States off the gold redemption standard. The rest of the world was struggling from inflation. After World War II, with the Bretton Woods Agreement, the United States, told the rest of the world, who was beat to hell, right? We were good because we were across the pond. Everyone else was beat to hell. They were broke. They had just gone out of this massive war. I don't know that this wasn't a decision I think we made purposely, but one of the best decisions we made for World War II was not getting involved early. Because we were basically the sixth man, right? We came off the bench in the fourth quarter when everyone else was tired and we still had our legs under us. So we weren't broke like everybody else per se. And we told every country, you give us your gold and we'll give you US dollars in return. And that's what you hold in your central bank. You don't hold gold anymore. We hold all the gold, right? So we did this in 33 within our country, and we did this in the 40s for the rest of the world, where we began to hold all the gold. And 30 years later, all these other countries, you know, in the 70s, had our U.S. dollars reserves, and they were experiencing inflation. And so what happened is they wanted to come and redeem the gold back from the United States, but Nixon said, no, not so fast. So as a result of taking us off the gold redemption policy, the entire world was now officially, for the first time ever, on a fiat-based standard, right? Which is just cash only by decree. Fiat means by decree in Latin. And that tells you there's nothing backing this, just full faith and credit of the United States government, which used to mean something.
So no more tangible item attached to the value of the so-called dollar, right? I mean, it just became an intangible, money became an intangible, basically proclaimed asset at that point, correct?
Yeah. So instead of being backed by what people call God's money, right, gold, or nature's money, which is what gold is, that has a natural supply and demand equation that hasn't really changed since the beginning of time, it was moved to a completely arbitrary supply and demand equation that the United States owns by themselves.
And doesn't it also go from like a limited resource to an unlimited resource at that point? I mean, isn't that kind of what happens, where that's where we get this massive amount of inflation and whatnot, correct?
No, you're exactly right. The money supply can go up at any moment.
So, and just for some context, the largest gold holdings by country, the United States is more than double. It's 2.5 times the next the next largest country relative to gold reserves, and that's Germany. So we have 2.5 times more than anyone else in the world. Never mind all of the other countries that have, you know, next to nothing. Like China has 1,900 tons, and the United States has 8,100.
Yeah, there's nobody that comes even close, because we literally pillaged the whole world after World War II. And so we did that and made everyone beholden to us. And then in the 70s, we changed the rules of the game and said, now you already have our dollars, but you can't redeem them for anything. Oh, and by the way, we can print more whenever we need them.
And this is just an extension, right? So what we operate under, and I know you're very fluent in this, Randy, what we operate under is Keynesian economics, right? So it's an economic system that the government has a lot to do inside of that, with regulation, with centralization, with currency manipulation, etc. Right? So that economic system, it's an open door for a government like ours to do what they want, when they want, how they want, and then make the rest of the world, as you've said, beholden to us. Explain to us just real quick, explain to the audience, Keynesian economics, or you know, and kind of the if you will, the tenets of it.
Yeah, and the first thing is pronouncing that guy's name sucks. It's like Keynesian, Keynesian. It's very silly, but it's based off a guy named John Maynard Keynes, who has absolutely no economic study. He came from a wealthy family where he had a long personal history of failed business endeavors, and is also to be a rumored pedophile. So there's just fun fact there.
Well, I mean, it fits right in with Epstein and everybody else in government. Yeah, but go ahead.
It doesn't feel like as much of a coincidence.
A shock today.
Yeah, shock. But ultimately, the premise is that whenever you need monetary stimulus, it's the responsibility of the government just to spend more, to print more, to spend more. And I found this little fun fact. Keynes was around before World War II, and there was a letter found where he actually wrote to the Nazis and said, my theory of economics is actually done easier in a totalitarian government. And I think that just goes to show where his priorities lie, which is government's in power, government can print more. If there's ever going to be a economic crash, the government should just spend more, and that will stimulate its way out of it.
Talk a little bit about his childhood growing up and how he kind of formed all of this.
Yeah. So as a child growing up, he was born to a wealthy family, never had to work personally. And every time he saw any type of economic crash coming, he would just see it never really impacted him that much. But when he saw the government spend more, everyone seemed happier. Everyone seemed to have more money, seemed to be better off. And so he just formed this theory without necessarily understanding the repercussions, because the elite, the asset holders, we'll talk about that more in a bit, but the asset holders under economic stimulus always end up owning more. And the non-asset holders after economic stimulus always end up holding less. And he just happened to be on the side of the tracks with the assets. So economic stimulus to him was only good.
And we've seen this exact practice in our current economics, right? I mean, with the real estate crash in 2008, and then we have the COVID situation. I mean, that's essentially the idea happening in our current country, right? It's like we have a problem, there becomes some economic strain, we print more money and we disperse more capital out into the world that we live in and try to prop this thing up. I mean, that's essentially, I mean, we've got some pretty clear examples of that pretty recently. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 2008 is an interesting example simply because homes are viewed as assets, and generally home prices don't fall the way they did in 2008. Generally speaking, home values only go up, and the COVID stimulus is a great example of it. But 2008 and what happened there also offers a good window into understanding exactly how money printing happens, right? Because it's a fun meme. There's a infinite number of money printer memes out there, but it doesn't really help you understand what does it mean. There isn't an actual printing press that's printing out $100 bills. Money printing, understanding how that happens is simply credit creation. The reserve rate in banks is 0%. So banks aren't required to have any money in them in order to loan out credit. So in fact, your money in the bank is considered a liability to that bank. So money is created when these banks lend out money that they don't have. You want to go buy a home? Here's $300,000 to buy this home. It is literally digits on a screen that were created out of nothing. And and 2008 was exactly that, because you had strippers in Miami buying 5 condos.
And strawberry pickers in California buying, oceanfront property. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're selling it. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So as asset holders, right? And I mean, Carter could talk to you for days about holding assets, buying dirt, right, Carter? Right? Like, I mean, like
What I chose to do.
Yeah. Why don't we as Americans, why don't we value the currency? Why don't what we do and what we purchase and what we save and how we spend or how we save, right? Or why don't we let the markets value the currency? Why does a government get the right to do that, right? And that's what's happened here, right? And so Keynesian or Keynesian, however you want to say it, right? That economic model, right, it's broken us, right? So there's another economic model, and by the way, it's broken us because printing of money, right? We just passed it the other day, right? $34 trillion in debt. By the way, that's $100,000 per every individual American, and it's $260,000 per taxpayer. That's what we all owe because of this debt, because of printing money, because of this government intrusion into what we do, and we've seen it, right? Well, we're inflation because of printing money, so now let's raise interest rates, and oh God, we're so lucky when they back it down a quarter point, right? Like, it's ridiculous that we kind of fall in line with all of this stuff. But there's another economic model out there, right, Randy? It's called Austrian economics, right? And so highlight the tenets of that and the differences.
Yeah. So, Keynesian economics is designed to punish the saver. And you can see that because those who saved money have just lost it slowly. Austrian economics is meant to reward the saver. It puts a major emphasis on free markets and individual entrepreneurship. And Austrian economics put such an emphasis on free markets that it lets the market decide what is money, right? So when I said in the 70s, we had for the first time ever, the government, the world was on only fiat-based monies. Up into really banknotes, which is hundreds and thousands of years of human history, free markets had decided money. There was a point in time where seashells in Africa were used as money until some settlers came and saw that, and they introduced their own seashells, and that blew up the supply rate of seashells. So they moved on to a next money. There were islands in the Pacific that used these specific type of stone as money. And then people came in from outside the islands, saw that, and they imported their own stones, and they blew up money. And so over time, people just navigate in a free market, right? Which is not what we're in right now. Sure, we're a capitalist country, quote unquote.
It's not.
We're not in a free market for money. Austrian economics, which has just been the de facto form of economics up until recent human history, has allowed free markets to decide how people want to trade. And gold was the best money we had ever created until the government kind of co-opted that.
Co-opted, they almost eliminated it, right? I mean, they did.
Yeah, it's not a form of money anymore.
No. And that's where Bitcoin comes into play, but we're not going to go there. Go ahead, Carter.
I was just going to say, Randy, you and I had talked a little bit about this offline, and I kind of want to, this is, I think, a way to kind of circle back to this, but I thought it was really interesting, because we just had in the last, 24 months, maybe less than, we've seen a couple of fairly large banks go out of business, right? It was Signature Bank. There was Silver Lining or some other, I don't know what they all were, but I know that then created some stress, because there was people sitting there going like, well, what am I going to do? And then it brought up this discussion about, well, there's FDIC insured money, right? Talk a little bit about that, Randy, because that was something that you brought up to me, and I was like, right?
We all did.
Like, oh my gosh, right? So tell us.
Yeah. So, like I said before, the reserve requirement for banks is zero. So banks are required to have $0 in them in order to fractionalize and print this money. So that puts them at huge bank run risk. We saw it originally in the Great Depression, which took 2 weeks for bank runs to happen. But last year, with Silicon Valley Bank, Silvergate Bank, and First Republic Bank, we had these actual bank runs happen where people rushed to the banks to take their money out, only to find out that there was no money there. Usually, your average American would tell you, that's okay, I have FDIC insurance. If my bank goes out of business, I'm going to get insured up to $250,000. Well, that's great. But with just these three banks, the FDIC insurance bucket, the money, your insurance money, is all gone. There was like less than 2%, I think, in that of all the money that's insured by the FDIC, they only had about 2% of the actual money to distribute.
That is frightening.
Yeah.
That is a frightening thought, man. Because I think people do run around and think like, oh, I've got FDIC insured money in the bank. So, well, if all the banks go sideways, I'll just get paid from FDIC. I mean, imagine, man, the catastrophe that would occur if multiple banks on layers and layers started to go through this process. People are going to find out really quickly. And again, what is the solution there? We're just gonna again go from just create more capital and just print more money to try to. When does it end? I guess, is what I'm saying, right? How do you stop this really shitty momentum?
So yeah, it's because we're coming up on a break, but so that's a really good question. How do you individually, put a stop to this? What do you do personally to make sure that you guarantee yourself, lack of a better term, that your money is yours, right? And that you don't get taken advantage of by this system that is controlled by whomever, whatever, government, etc.
Yeah, that is a really nuanced question. And something I want to make clear is what happened to Silvergate, Silicon Valley, and First Republic Bank can literally happen to any bank in the country, because all of them are over-leveraged. a bank run can happen at any time to any bank. So I'm not trying to freak anybody out here, but they need to be aware that this is the situation. And if you want to protect yourself against that, your best bet is investing into assets, and ideally, if you can, self-custodial assets, right? So something like a real estate that you own, that you see it, like you can touch it, right? That's an amazing asset to invest in. There's no question about it. There are some other alternatives as well. I think real estate's a great one. But if you want to protect yourself, you need to find specifically supply side limited assets, right? The problem with our money is there is no limit to the supply. It's infinite. And what is infinite over anything, right? That's a problem. But when you have supply side assets that are limited, real estate being a great one, you can really protect yourself. You can at least ride the wave. I mean, here's the thing: like the inflation, the currency debasement, which is really the boogeyman, is going to hit us all. But you can at least ride the wave, possibly get ahead by investing into some certain assets. But you have to be investing. The way our monetary policy is set up is it's set up to punish the saver and possibly reward the investor. And you have to, everyone in America has two jobs. It's their day job and it's to be an investor. And if you don't understand that, you are going to get left behind, and I'm sorry for you.
So the way you kill two birds with one stone is you run for Congress. Because you'll get right.
Yeah, become a politician.
You become a politician. You get all the inside info. You get a decent salary that you can invest. You get all the kickbacks and all the campaign funding, and then you invest it. You know, you're like Pelosi, right? Like you invest it and you do your thing, and you come out 80%, you know, with 180% more assets than you went in with, right?
Yeah,
dude. Except for you have smaller cans, Mike.
Here we go.
Just deflated. That's all.
I'm just saying, she's got huge cans. I don't know if you've noticed. I know she's old, dude, and disgusting, but like, check it out sometime. Maybe you can listen.
JFK knew what he was doing.
Oh,
JFK and young Nancy. It's real.
It makes it real. So, hey, it does make more sense once you see what she's packing. Do you agree, Randy?
Yeah. There are photos of them together. I'm not even making this up.
I can totally see it now. I mean, somebody brought it up to me. Dude, somebody brought it up to me, and I was like, "Come on!" And then when I saw it, I was like, and it was like, "It's okay." I can't unsee it.
It's life changing.
Yeah.
Wait.
It's the only part of her that's not a wrinkled up mess, so they're obviously not real, but it's still
once you see what she's packing, that is a quote. That is a quote for the ages.
And we're not talking about firearms.
Randy, dude, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Hey everyone, we'll post that website, WTFHappened in1971.com. I'll also publish the www.usdebtclock.org, where you can track your debt that you're not signing up for. But in any case, we'll make sure all those resources are available to you. And Randy, thanks a lot, Carter.
No, I was just going to say the same thing, Randy. I think there's more discussion we had here. So I think this year, next year, they're going to be really interesting times to watch kind of what goes on in the economic state of the country. I hope that we can do this again and jump on and kind of talk about updates and where things are at here. You know, maybe a few months into the year, I think we're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of things coming to light. Now we got this election situation coming up as well. I think that's all going to have an effect on what we're talking about. But again, as we tell people all the time, do what Randy has done. Go out and educate yourself, do some research, dig into this stuff, and try to at least understand the fundamentals of how some of these things are happening, because I think it's easy to get kind of snowed into this idea that, hey, you know, big brother government's going to take care of it as these economic issues come about. And as you stated, there's some pretty serious consequences and repercussions for how things are set up, Randy. So I appreciate bringing that to light, man. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, we'll have Randy back on. He can't get rid of me that quick.
There's a lot more to talk about. There's not more to talk about. So I appreciate
Excellent.
that.
Randy, thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Cheers, gentlemen.
All right, here, we're going to take a break. We'll be back after this. I have more to say about this stuff, Carter. Let's go.
All right. We'll talk to you.
All right, take care.
All right, man. We're back after the break. Yeah. Randy Carroll.
Yeah, good dude. Good dude.
Yeah. I got to meet Randy once in person here in Arizona before he traveled back out east.
He's so
Great
funny,
dude.
and he's gonna love that I'm gonna tell this story.
Oh boy.
So he's
You
like,
gonna do this to him right now?
100%.
Poor bastard.
He
Okay.
needs it again. He and Jimmy can attest to this because Jimmy's heard this. He's from Atlanta, and he believes that everything, and he's diehard Atlanta, like a Falcons fan, Hawks fan, all that stuff, right?
Yep.
Do you remember the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
Yes, I do.
Remember how the father would say that you give me any word, and I'll tell you what the Greek origin is?
Yeah.
Right? Randy believes that everything significant that's ever happened in the history of mankind started in Atlanta. You'll be having a conversation.
I love it. Yeah.
You'll be having a conversation, and he'll be like, "Did you know?" And you'll mention some random person or some random. Let's take a car, and he'll go, "Do you know the guy that invented that car was born in Atlanta?"
I love it. So I got to say this, man. I just got on this website, WTF happened in 1971.com.
It's insane, isn't it?
This is really interesting.
And
I started digging into it at the break.
Yeah.
I mean, I strongly suggest people hop on here and just read through some of these charts and some of some of this stuff, man, is absolutely crazy.
And the thing about it, guys, is it's just charts.
Yeah.
Right? There's a little bit of narrative in there, but it's just charts. It's not some long thing you have to read. It's like a pop-up book.
Well, what's great about a lot of these charts, like there's a lot of them are tied to, at least a lot of the ones I've looked at so far, are tied to very specific events. Mm-hmm. And you can really see how specific events, especially in history of the United States, had effect on some of these economic drivers that Randy was alluding to and that you talked about in that discussion. So just crazy stuff, man. And I do think that it's not very many people truly do understand how government controlling our currency has changed everything.
You know what's funny is how many times in the past 20 years have you heard our politicians, or our Federal Reserve, right?
Yeah.
Or the Department of the Treasury, whomever, right?
Right.
In government.
Right.
Criticize China for manipulating their currency.
Yeah.
How many times have you heard them stand up and go, "We can't take this. It's imbalancing the trade. It's doing it's this."
Doing the same shit.
Doing the same damn shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
We are. Absolutely.
So there's one. So I want to speak to what Randy talked about and having heart and having assets.
Yeah.
Right. And he talked about real estate, which you're a huge believer in, right? As we know, I have some of my own. Right.
I think given the my situation was driven by the current economic situation that we're in. Right. Exactly what he explained. Right. That's why I was Jimmy doing the fist pump in there.
No, I didn't see it. Because whoever was talking on the screen, that's who I saw.
Oh, yeah. So no, I gave one of these when he was talking about the fixed asset thing. Good. And again, people had questioned me about that as well. But that is definitely something that's very, very visible and clear in the economic history of the United States anyway, that I've researched myself. Is that when we go through these periods and we see these climbs of inflation and interest and all these other things, the only thing that really continues to increase or become more difficult to get a hold of is some of these fixed assets and hard assets. And so the value tends to go up, right? When other parts of the economy are plummeting. So
to that point, and I talked about productivity and income and how it's split.
Yep.
So it's split like this.
Yeah.
In 71. So there's a chart on this website. WTF happened in 1971. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it's about a third of the way down. And it's home value change versus income change, 1965 through 2021. And they basically started in the same spot. Obviously, they started in the same spot in 1965.
Yeah.
Home value has gone up 120%, whereas income has gone up, I'm going to say about 18%.
Wow. So where does it break? Right? I mean, that alone. And here's what's crazy to me, man. I don't understand. We're in this big push, at least we're like around Cedar Rapids where I am. Mm-hmm. There's this huge push. I know there's tons and tons of incentives right now for workforce housing, not low income housing, but affordable housing. You know what I mean? And there's this big push for developers to develop, building more townhouses and more affordable living for people, because they're saying that. And I think that the point is that they're trying to drive down home prices by increasing the supply, which makes sense, right? It's like trying to get it to a more affordable. But that gap that you're talking about is insurmountable with development.
Correct.
That's an insurmountable gap, dude.
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's no way that fixes the issue.
And that was created. And you brought up Mrs. Cans, right?
Yeah.
Who said she got
Wasn't that
Which
great?
I saw-
I had to lighten the conversation. It was getting really serious the whole time. God, when you
So
and Randy
anyway,
both.
so like that's been done on purpose. She got into it to create more of that bureaucracy. And I was listening to a different podcast, and it talked about how there's a lot of bureaucrats in Washington, right? Even back in the 1800s, right?
Yeah, sure.
Who still believed in the principle of the European monarchies.
Yeah,
where they controlled everything, where they made decisions for the people, where they knew what was best.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of those politicians and bureaucrats have been in government since the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s. Right. They've been there. Pelosi's one of them. Right. And they believe that they're better suited to make decisions for people than people themselves, which is exactly the opposite of what our founders, what the constitutionalists believed in. They believed in the will of the people and that the people would create and hold incentives accountable.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's what they believed. They could not have dreamed in 200-300 years later that the system would override the will of the people.
Yeah.
They would, if you told Thomas Jefferson or George Washington or John Adams, whomever, right?
Right.
If you told them that government overreach and the system of centralized banking would override the people, they would have lost their minds.
Yeah.
They would have revolted again, right?
Absolutely. So dude, as you look through some of these charts, and I think that this is one of the things that sticks out to me is that we have now, talking about this manipulation of currency, talking about this manipulation of the economic market. I think there's so many people that just like watch, look the S&P 500. They, what I mean, or they're invested in the Nasdaq and the Dow, and and that's how they gauge the economic health of the country.
Yeah, if it's going up, we're good. If it's going down, we're not good,
dude. Do you not think that's the craziest thing ever?
Well, think about it. When you were growing up, when I was growing up, right? What'd you see? You watched ABC Nightly News with Peter Jennings, or NBC with Ted Brokaw.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what was always like at the 20-minute mark right before commercial.
Yeah.
And today on the stock market, the Dow Jones went up X, the Nasdaq has gone down Y,
21 points.
Well, the Nasdaq didn't even exist then, but anyway, it was all the Dows, the blue chips.
Yep.
Right.
Yep,
and what that did, that's what people thought the economy was doing. That's what I thought as a kid. That must be what the economy's doing.
That's the desired outcome.
Yeah.
Is that, hey, as long as you watch this thing and the numbers are green more than they're red.
That's right.
We're doing great.
If the arrow's up instead of down. Right.
I mean, don't you think that's kind of what and as Randy alluded to, it's like there's so much more to it than that. And this goes all the way back. Like, what really is money? What is the real purpose of money? And what is it, it's not just the overall, I don't know. I just think there's a lot to that. That's kind of just brushed under the rug, swept under the rug.
I agree.
And people go, well, yeah, if the Dow's up, then
we're good.
Yeah,
My
the United States is doing great.
My 401k, which is invested in all kinds of everything, must have done well as well.
Right. Well, and he also made the statement that he had his money invested with a financial advisor at one point, and it didn't perform to the position that the market was performing, and he kind of went, well, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
How many people do that?
All of them. I mean,
I'm saying
that's your 401k.
I know, but I'm saying people may do that, but how many people actually sit there and go, this isn't right, or I need to understand this.
Not many.
Right? I think people kind of go, oh, well, next year will be better.
Yeah.
Or, hey, it's a long-term play, so just let it ride. I just, for me, it's interesting because I've always wanted to be in a situation, and it's not because of, it's like out of fear, because I don't trust the economic situation, how it's built. I think it's built on a house of cards, which I think Randy, and I think this website pretty well spells out that it is. Yep. It's, I was always in a situation to say, I want to invest my money into something I have some level of control.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And that was part of my situation with investing in fixed assets myself too. It's also something that I get to enjoy, right? It's something I get to use and something I get to actually take advantage of. Even like my house here in Arizona, right? It's like, that's an investment property for me, but I get to use it.
Right.
I get to come down here in the wintertime, which sucks right now because it's 50 fucking degrees down here, and it was 80 last week. I picked the wrong. You picked a great date, Mike. Appreciate you.
You brought the cold with you. Just remember that.
It was cold when I got here.
Whatever.
But anyway.
Anyway.
You know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
I think that's another aspect of, again, it wasn't because I was like so smart that I was going to jump, but I'm really glad, man. I'm really happy that is the direction that I took, because I think I'm in a much better position now than I would have been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had I not taken that play.
I think it's important to note, right? And Randy, talked about this a little bit. And this thought of the government's interference and what have you. We that's what we've been talking about.
Absolutely.
And you believe in it wholeheartedly, right?
Yes.
The entirety of having freedom.
Yes.
Right? We've talked about this. Is the individual should be making their own fiscal decisions.
Correct.
It's the government's job to protect their right to make those fiscal decisions. It's not the government's job to make the decisions for them or to preclude them from making certain decisions.
Right. That's the way we believe it should function in democracy.
That's the way. That's in a constitutional republic, right? Like that's
Correct.
the way it's supposed to work.
That's a much better way to say it.
Right?
Yes. Absolutely. And unfortunately, man, that's not what we're seeing, right?
We're 180 degrees away from that.
I couldn't agree
from an
more.
individual having free right to do what they want with their money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was interesting too, man. I didn't know much about like the Keynesian economics versus the Austrian economics, and I think that's an interesting thing that I'll dive into some more, just because I didn't really understand. I think that there's a perception, like my perception is that we are supposed to be kind of functioning in an Austrian economics situation. We're not.
But it's not.
Not even close.
Oh.
We talk about this like it's a free economy and all these. It's not.
I mean, just the basic Wikipedia page,
Right,
for Austrian economics, it describes the differences between the two, and it's stark.
Really?
Right. Austrian is what we think we're in every day, that we are truly
Yeah.
in a free market.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
Right. Because the government's involved. The government's what has the government done? The Federal Reserve done for the last year and a half?
Yeah.
They've manipulated interest rates to slow spending.
Yeah.
Right. To bring inflation down. Right.
Yeah.
That's what they've done. So they've completely manipulated the system. They're manipulating the system in order to provide what they feel is a better result.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Right.
The actual best result is when people decide for themselves.
That's right.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's an argument to be made that people are too freaking stupid.
Yes.
Right. Like you should.
But those are the same people, man, that are in this situation that want that feeling of, hey, if I screw up, Dad's gonna just give me more money.
Correct. Yep.
Right. That Randy gave that example.
Yep.
Right. It's like if I screw this up, then somebody's gonna be there to be my safety net. It's like, can't we all just be fiscally more responsible? Can't we do what Randy talked about and have less need for an instant gratification when we acquire money?
Okay, so where does that begin? It begins when you're a kid at home.
I agree.
Your parents teaching you
the
fiscal
example,
responsibility.
but I also think, man, like we've now I think it's different, Mike, because now with social media and now we have this huge push for consumerism, right? It's like buy, and you need this and you need that, and you need a fancier car, you need better clothes, you need to do this and that and the other thing to keep up with this image of being some comfortable person in the United States, the society that we live in, and so much of that is fake.
Yeah.
And so much of it creates
Yeah,
debt,
agreed,
and so much of it creates financial instability.
Yep.
It's like it's not real, but yet that's what's getting shoved down our kids' throats now every single day. Because my kids, dude, they're on their phones, they're on their devices, or it's like it's constantly being pushed down their throat to buy.
And if you want to learn how to manage your money, there's an app for that.
Absolutely, right.
And who benefits from that app? The advertisers.
That's right.
Right.
That's
so
right.
While you're trying to save money, send you a great ad for this new car.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. It's ridiculous.
It is. It's just a vicious cycle.
It really. So when I might have mentioned this in a previous podcast, but when I went into Marine Corps, one of the first things there's called MCIs, right? And they're courses you have to take.
Okay.
And if you take them, you learn things, obviously, but it's about everyday life. Not just like Marine Corps stuff.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And one of them is personal finances. Like it teaches you how to balance a checkbook.
Right.
Because Marines, like a lot of other service members, go to a base and there's three things outside of the front gate of a base. There's a pawn shop. No.
A bar?
Yeah, well, it's a strip club. And there's a car dealership. Pawn shop, strip club, car dealership.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So
well, here's the thing, man. So we, again, I just think that this drive towards instant gratification is really closely connected with this astronomical spending, right? This borrowing and borrowing and borrowing of money, this inability to function in a budget-driven environment. I mean, we don't have that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we made this budget and we overshot it by $600 million, but oh well. Dude, there's little things too. I mean, I don't know. We could talk about this and go on and on and on, but I think it's just it's an eye-opening discussion that people need to be aware of and understand that, you know, be responsible and take responsibility. That FDIC discussion,
mind blowing. Yeah, my money in my bank right now is not insured.
No,
Nothing's gone.
no.
You have a lot more than I do.
No,
So it must freak you out even more.
Dude, the crazy thing to me right now is like for the first time in a really long time, because interest rates have gone up so much, for the first time in a long time, dude, it's like you put money in treasuries and get 5.5%. There's not a lot of risk. Like there's a great opportunity which is good for the government.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's giving the government some of that capital to be able to function. At the same time, I'm getting a nice healthy interest rate back on some of that money. But yes, if you're sitting on a significant amount of cash, and I think Randy alluded to this too, right? It's like deploy the capital into something that, again, may not give you that instant gratification. And I think that what he was talking about when he was talking about that real estate investing opportunity that's changed now is that you can buy fractional positions in real estate now. Yeah. There's other things, there's other opportunities. You don't have to go be the one guy that goes out and buys the $1 million building. You can be an investor in one of those fractional ownership pieces. Yep. And maybe you spend, peanuts, but yet you're still using that capital and deploying it somewhere where it's protected a little bit more as a fixed asset than it is in this very volatile economic state that we're in. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting. I want to kind of hit you with something.
Are we going to talk about Pelosi's cans?
No.
Damn it. Okay, go ahead.
I love it. I love it. Anyway,
Jimmy, by the way, sent that picture. I was like, she does have huge cans.
I looked at it in the break and I'm like, I know. Holy cow. And what was great was it was Tucker Carlson in the picture. He's like, anyway. Man. So what else? Hey, take a wild guess. What else happened in 1971? The same time Nixon took us off the gold standard. Something that happens in everyday life. Okay, I'll give you a hint. The rate right now is about 60%.
60%. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm lost.
So in 1971. The no fault divorce law was passed federally.
Oh. So all of a sudden the family unit kind of also fell apart.
Because you can walk in and go, hey, irreconcilable differences, I'm done.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So before there had to be a reason. You had to show injury.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like physical injury necessarily, but fiscal or infidelity or something, right? You had to show some kind of injury, for lack of a better term, or there had to be fault.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So harm of some way. Yeah, correct. Some sort of way.
In 71, no fault divorce law went into effect federally. So and now the divorce rate's at 60%.
Wow.
I remember when I was a kid, it was like 45%.
If even, probably. Yeah. Right? I feel like it was much lower. Yeah.
So it's climbed 15% in the 30 years I've been an adult. Right.
Yeah. That's wild, man.
Yeah. In 71, a few years before I was born, it had to be, I know what it was. It was 22%.
Wow. Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's crazy how these things are tied together.
And how many people going through a divorce have really bad financial problems.
Yeah.
Because you've got...
It's hard, dude.
It's really tough.
Hey, dude, and we're in a situation, man, where again, with the prices of things where they are, right? Having a 2-income household is almost a necessity.
Correct.
I mean, it's almost hard to survive as a single person, as an individual, because everything is so damn expensive.
Right.
I mean, how hard is it to buy a home on a one-person income? How hard is it to support children? How hard is it? It's tough, bro.
Yeah.
Insurance is crazy expensive. Health insurance, car insurance, home insurance, property taxes are going crazy. Like my property taxes, dude, have gone up 20% in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Overall.
It's insane.
20%, dude. That's insane. In 2 years.
Yeah.
And my schools don't seem to be getting any better. I don't know, man. There's so many things, right? That we are definitely living in a broken system right now. I think that I don't know. Like to me, it's scary because I feel like it's a guarantee that we'll have an economic collapse, right? With the situation that's happening, it's when is it going to happen? And how bad is it going to be?
Well, so ask yourself this: will we have an economic collapse? And
I think we've already had one. We've delayed because of the dad's going to give me more money situation, right?
Right.
The printing of money, that's
So-
what it stopped.
So in your mind or my mind or Jimmy, whomever's mind,
Right.
have we had an economic collapse? I think we already have, and I think we're in the bottom of one.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing, right? Like it's covered up. The government puts
delay.
a massive Band-Aid on it.
Correct.
Right. And some people may think, well, I didn't lose my job necessarily,
Yes.
but my wages aren't going up. Things are more expensive to buy. I can't do as many things as I used to. My vacations, I used to take 2. Now I take 1, or whatever the case might be.
Right.
It's degraded to some extent.
Right.
Right. And when it's degraded,
Yeah.
well, guess what? Like that's a collapse.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's
Well, the
happening
bad
to
thing is, man,
everywhere.
I think the bad thing is when that cover up, that doesn't work permanently, right? That's like you said, it's a Band-Aid, right? It's a temporary cover up. And unfortunately, man, when that cover up stops working, it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
I feel like we're delaying the inevitable.
That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. I mean, almost like a startup, right? We're buying more runway.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Just borrow. Yeah. Like, but what happens if you don't make it?
Well, this, it's the government, holding us on life support.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not good.
Is it?
It's not good. So what Randy said, go do some research.
Yep.
Check it out. WTF happened in 1971.com. There's a bunch of other resources. Randy mentioned a few of them.
Yep.
I couldn't tell you how, I mean, just again, go to the Wikipedia page and look up the gold standard.
Yep.
Right. That's all you got to do. Gold standard on Wikipedia. And it's long. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot to read, but read it and you will have this very, very new appreciation for what happened then. And then you can do some more research into how currency works today.
I don't think it's going to be too long, man, where we're going to be figuring out how to get back to like trade.
Yeah.
Trading goods and services for goods and services. Right. I mean, that's how things started.
Bullets and bread.
Yeah.
Bullets and bread. That's it.
Yep. I love it. All right, man. Great discussion.
Yeah.
Appreciate Randy Carroll. That was awesome. Thanks
Indeed.
for getting him connected with us.
Absolutely.
And Randy, thank you for your time. We'll get you on to do this again at some point.
Yeah. And it's on Spotify. It's Why Not Us in all caps.
All capital letters.
And the website is whynotUspod.org. So check it out. Tell your friends, all that kind of good stuff.
Yep. Why Not Results helping us out.
Thanks,
New partner
Jimmy.
here for the recording here in the studio. So thanks, Jimmy, for all your help.
Yep.
And hey, guys, check us out again. We'll see you
All right.
soon.
Talk
Thanks,
to you soon.
Mike.
Later.